The Gulf Injustice Podcast, the official podcast of Detained in Dubai with Radha Stirling.
Welcome to the Gulf Injustice Podcast. I'm Radha Stirling, and today I'm joined by Wolfgang Douglas, a GB News commentator, former Dubai resident and businessman, the son of Elbert Douglas, whose detention in Dubai was challenged in a United Nations application launched by yours truly. Wolfgang is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and business strategist who has built and exited multiple companies across real estate, asset liquidation, and private equity. After Elbert's arrest in Dubai during a commercial dispute, we filed an application with the UN Working Group for Arbitrary Detention. The UN reviewed the evidence and issued a formal opinion confirming that Elbert had been wrongfully and arbitrarily detained in violation of international law and that he should be released and compensated. Following that ruling and the international pressure it generated, Elbert was ultimately able to return home in time for Christmas last year. We're now pursuing the next stage, including engagement with the United Nations Special Rapporteurs regarding the torture and mistreatment he suffered while in custody. We're seeking full accountability. Good to see you again, Wolfgang. It's been a short while.
It certainly has, Radha. Well, we're lucky that we're still in communication the way we are. Obviously, working on the next steps after you successfully got my father home, which there is no amount of thanks that I'll ever be able to show my true appreciation for.
And it was wonderful to just say hello to him in the background just now.
Yeah, it was.
Good to see him in such good spirits.
It's quite a flip of a script.
It certainly is.
Yeah. So we've got some big things coming, which obviously your audience might know as we look to take action in reverse. Yes. From defensive to offensive, and hopefully alongside yourself and litigation financiers that have actually stepped in and want to help with this particular project because of the sheer gravity the United Nations finding in our favor through yourself, showing that it was actually arbitrary detention and they had no legal basis to take the case forward, which you proved and demonstrated despite all the naysayers.
And for those of you who don't know about the case, please have a look at elbertdouglas.com. And of course, we have we have the full history of the case, including what he suffered while in detention and how entrepreneurs and business people have been targeted over the past almost 20 years that Detained in Dubai has been in operation. So
I can see the main issues that you've got at the moment are of what's happening in Iran, rather. What we're seeing in Iran is very much a highlighting or a show of reality to the tinderbox that Dubai always has been.
Absolutely. I mean, I think people are reacting in a very interesting way, would you say, over the past couple of weeks. It's just been, it's been almost a battle of people being able to get the truth out of how they feel about what's happening, and then others completely trying to, deny that there's going to be any impact whatsoever on the Dubai economy. I mean, what do you think?
Well, let's try and stick to reality for a moment. These influencers, there's some that are paid and there are some that are off the boat and completely in denial. Once banks are being bombed, once the US travel advice to their financial institutions are told to evacuate the country, at that moment, if you believe there is no financial impact to that country, you are totally deluded.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got the airport closing down, here, there, and in unexpected ways. You've got people hiding from drones, hiding from, the fallout from missiles overhead, from debris. You've got deaths. We had a death today. A driver was killed. We had a drone attack, flying into people's apartment buildings. I mean, this does not make people feel safe. And I know there's, quite a few entrepreneurs out there who will it to be so. They want it to continue to be this enclave because they love so many things about it. They love perhaps, the laws related to crypto. They like the low tax lifestyle. And so they're trying their best to perpetuate, some idea that they're going to recover very quickly from what's happened. And the longer it goes on, the less likely that seems.
Well, it's less perpetuation and more justification. They have to justify why they need to hang on, and they are the hangers-oners at this point. What you're actually seeing, I run a business platform, Wolf Mindset Business Academy, and I also own an asset liquidation business, which specializes in distressed assets and the liquidation of assets and the movement of money across borders. I've seen a phenomenal volume, and I do mean the word phenomenal, or an overwhelming volume of people that are trying to, as quick as they can, exit the market in the United Arab Emirates. But the story doesn't really stop or start there. The largest shockwave is the volume of money that's being redirected away from there. So earmarked projects in the Gulf or the UAE or Dubai specifically that are no longer going to be invested in. And in the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've seen hundreds of millions of dollars of inquiries on my own platform. But the billions that must have stopped entering the Gulf market, it must be a number that's so incredible that the aftermath after this war is going to be a financial devastation. And I have seen property, I say, all over the mainstream media drop anywhere between 20 to 70%. I've had family offices from the Gulf give me a call on so many occasions I cannot count. We had, I think, 1,500 calls in the first week of family offices just trying to offload properties at discounted at 30, 40, 50, up to 70%. The smart money is not walking out the door, rather, it's running out of the door. And when people are trying to hold on to the fantasy of the United Arab Emirates of what it was prior, what I think you'll find now is you'll have before the Iranian war and after the Iranian war. Dubai will continue, but it shall be forever changed. Much like places like Lebanon and so many other places that had huge wars. But the financial impact is what's going to be the huge devastating factor, because the fact of Dubai, it was sold on a lie. It was told by Sheikh Mohammed and all of the Gulf leaders that this could never happen. This would never happen. And what's happened in reality is that it's in the middle of probably one of the most hostile, volatile regions in the whole world, surrounded by bad actors, dictators, and violent terrorist groups. And it's an actual miracle that this hasn't happened already, rather. This reminds me more of someone that you'd find in a casino that has landed red 75 times in a row and starts to misunderstand the difference between luck and skill. They keep betting red and it keeps landing red, and they're actually have been selling this luck as skill. It's an absolute miracle it hasn't already happened. And what's happened in the United Arab Emirates has been coming for a very long time. You are literally investing in a tinderbox.
Yeah. And there's a few issues because it has been, it has been the hub for investment. They've pumped so much money into marketing in the United Kingdom, the United States, and people have seen it as the best place for real estate or to set up a company, an offshore business, to live, to holiday in. And you can't just necessarily change that from Dubai to Singapore, for example. Singapore is a completely different style of place and doesn't necessarily offer that same lifestyle that Dubai's been offering. So where do you think that people who are attracted to, I don't know, a sort of seedier lifestyle perhaps in Dubai, in comparison to Singapore, where are they going to go?
Look, I'm I'm a victim of this myself. I also lived in Dubai for 12 years. They lured me in with the false promises that I now, highlight to people that don't know from my own experiences in real life. So everything I talk about is stuff that I've actually lived through, and I've challenged, and I've been through court jurisdiction of both the UK and the UAE. So I'm talking from experience. I'm not talking from a playbook or what I've watched on television. The Gulf, and specifically Dubai, sold itself as a safe haven. Now, people were having the opportunity of having massive returns on their money, tax-free. We all know that high risk deserves high reward. The trick in the Gulf was they masked the high risk element by convincing people that there was no risk. They sold, or their slogan was, the safest place to do business in the world. Yeah. Whether that meant from stealing your watch to taxation. And what they actually filled the country of was mostly tax evaders, money launderers, and in a lot of cases, criminals, whether that be financial criminals or terrorism. The high life followers followed the money. And that's why you have this massive influencer market, which the UAE very quickly realized was far more effective than mainstream media. Now, the biggest lie that a lot of people have not particularly understood is they went on a media campaign here in London. So here in London, they went on a media campaign, the onslaught, I call it, of calling it unsafe, high taxes, bad weather, worse food. It was the absolute annihilation of the British financial system. And our politicians turned a blind eye, because the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, who are the same people who are supposed to be there to represent us, are also the same people responsible there to promote foreign direct investment. And the biggest investors were the very same people who was absolutely obliterating us across social media and mainstream media, supporting and financing groups of people and organizations to give a very negative, poor, and hurtful attitude toward our whole economy, and people were fleeing our country. And I've spoke about this on lots of stations. Our British government have been allowing this to happen. Now the trick was, when we look around Knightsbridge, Mayfair, South Kensington, Belgravia, who own those houses? Who own those properties?
Yes, Radha, certainly the Gulf boys.
Yes. Telling us that it's no good to be there. So they're convincing our citizens to divest, bringing the money back to Dubai or the Gulf, recycling it into their own coffers one way or another. So that money lands back, you buy property, cars, you get into the system, whatever. As that recycles back into their own coffers, they reinvest that same money they took from you when you sold your home back to buy your home with your money. And they do it in the name of safety. So they've preached that London is not safe, but then they've invested all of their money in the name of safety back to London. So that's the big deception, the big con. And I think a lot of people during this particular episode of volatility are seeing that. They can see that there's a massive correction here. The Gulf is not safe. The Gulf is not built on any financial economics whatsoever that makes sense. It was built on build it and they will come. False promise, no promise at all.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, what do you think, therefore? Are you suggesting that people should see the United Kingdom again as a promising location for investment, even after, the government of Starmer, where you've got a mass exodus essentially.
Starmer, Rachel Reeves, these I don't even like to call them politicians. Left-wing activists in power have done everything they can to destroy our economy. I mean, it is shocking how much damage one party in one term can do in such a short time. And they've managed to do it. In record-breaking time, they have managed to push more millionaires out the door than decades prior. I mean, it's all shocking.
And what do you think? I mean, speaking of which, what do you think?
Is an accidental victory. They've got an accidental victory here, because what's happened in the Gulf has put a huge spotlight on the reality of the Gulf. You know, that safe haven status, Dubai has lost it. Like, they can cling on to it as long as they want, these influencers who are paid to tell you it's okay, or hanging on because they've got nowhere else to go. But Dubai has lost its safe haven status. And London is the Gulf safe haven bank. When the UAE leaders put their money somewhere for safety, they choose London. And remember this, when this war is over, the same sheikhs who told you that this couldn't happen and wouldn't happen in the Gulf will be the very same sheikhs who will now tell you that it couldn't happen again. And if they could get away with it, would say it never happened at all. Because they're throwing people in prison for as much as videoing the evidence right in front of their eyes. You know, propaganda censorship in the Gulf is rife.
Yeah. I mean, one concern I think that investors have is that the real aggressive push towards taxation, which is obviously one of the huge reasons that people go to Dubai. And now you have the push in the media, I'm sure you've seen it, the increasing amount of discussion about exit taxes, taxing people on the basis of their citizenship, worldwide taxation. Will people be afraid to, invest back into the United Kingdom and live there for fear that if they ever want to leave in the future, which they very well might, because it can easily become an unpleasant jurisdiction to do business in. And if it does, and there's an exit tax or penalties for entrepreneurs, for business people, for people with real estate. I mean, I know in other countries, they're adding capital gains tax to people who are, citizens and residents who leave the country and then sell their houses later. They're adding, 37% capital gains tax, which is quite extortionate. But it seems to be the way Western countries might be going. And I think that could be a concern for people who were in the UAE, have a lot of money to invest, have a lot of, entrepreneurial experience, business people. Is the United Kingdom safe for them?
Let's also be clear. We can't compare a lie with the truth. As I said, Dubai is a lie, and this has been exposing that lie, exposing the recycling of our own funds to buy our own properties back for the sake of safety while promoting our country as a non-safe country. This is going to be an uptick in our economy, and that should be celebrated. It's an accidental win for our Labour Party that has done everything to harm the economy as they could. But no, you can't compare a lie with the truth. The truth isn't nice. If you call me balding, a little bit fat, old, I don't like hearing that, Radha. But that's the truth. So yes, we pay tax. Yes, we pay tax. Yes, we have huge expenses. And yes, we have problems. But in London, you know about them. In London, it's not a cost, it's an expense. And in Dubai, they sell themselves as a tax-free country when in fact they have a huge volume of taxes. They have indirect tax. In the UK, we have direct taxation. And direct taxation is something that it lands on your plate and you have the ability to discuss it. Indirect taxation is something that you can't avoid and you have no ability to discuss in a country where censorship doesn't allow you to either challenge the government nor the rulers. And if you've got a government a problem in the United Arab Emirates as an example, and they don't pay you, and you're an entrepreneur and you own your own business, you can't take them to court. You can't critique them or criticize them in any capacity. You can't file a complaint. You are rendered helpless. And that's what you pay for when you're in the UK. You know, it might be raining, but it's real. It's not the Matrix.
What about people, and this is a complaint, the over-regulation, the administration nightmare, you know, of running business in the United Kingdom? I mean, it might be good for people who have, you know, business that needs an office, that needs a presence, that requires to be there. But there's so many people nowadays who earn their money online, who have online businesses. Why would they want to domicile in the United Kingdom and set up business there?
Radha, I'm glad you said that, because Wolf Mindset Business Academy is designed and created exactly for those people. It's a platform for those people who can't actually see through the woods because of all the red tape, restrictions, and the thought of them. You know, actually, the UK is the easiest place to do business in reality. You can set up a business in an hour. It costs £30 to £50. You can have your bank accounts open the same day you open your business, and you can be VAT registered in a matter of 14 days. So tell me a place in the whole world that is as streamlined as that. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, and that's why I started the Wolf Mindset Business Academy, that how easy it is for a single entrepreneur to start a business. And yes, you do pay tax. Yes, there are genuine red tape. And no, our government is not pro-business, but it's real. That's why it's safe. And that's why Sheikh Mohammed, the man that tells you that London is not the answer and Dubai is the answer, puts almost all of his money right here in London.
I mean, what about, let's say, an average business, you know, kind of making three to 500,000 a year, having to add 20% VAT to their clients who are struggling to afford to pay their fees, given, you know, inflation, given the rising cost of living, the average business having to charge 20%. If they're an online business, that is, and if they have the choice of other jurisdictions, and, you know, that is part of the reason that they've chosen Dubai, maybe not even to live in, but to register their companies in and operate in. Don't you think that they would be looking for another sort of offshore jurisdiction rather than an onshore jurisdiction that has 20% value added tax and the rest of the red tape that goes with it?
I don't think London is the economic sunshine of pro-business. That is something that this government, the Labour government, has clearly made a point in their life to chase all of our wealth, our talent, and all of our educated away, because they have whiplashed the wealthy to throw money at initiatives that most wealthy don't agree with, such as refugees and all of these other programs that are draining our economy of both talent and money at the same time. But it is safe. It's a safe country. And the lie that we were actually discussing was the theory of people coming to the Gulf because it was safe. We've now proven it's not safe. The moment that those bombs were hitting in financial institutions, and the DIFC itself has been hit, you know, the ports have been hit, the trading ports, the oil routes have been blocked, the Fujairah and the Jebel Ali ports have been hit. The United States has had their own citizens evacuate. And I watched on these TikTok reels, all of these people thanking Sheikh Mohammed. It's something that I watch all the time. It's a new trend. Thank you for our leader. Our leader, a man that provides them with no citizenship, no healthcare, no housing, a man that if you lose your job, kicks you out of the country, a man that will not allow you to as much as bring up any negative comment toward him or his government where he will literally throw you in jail for doing so. This man is your protector. That man is a tyrant. And the only thing he's protecting is his business model. When people are thanking someone, who they should be thanking is Donald Trump. Donald Trump operates what's called the US Patriot system. That's the golden dome that looks over the UAE. Donald Trump and his administration has gone into Iran, let's be real, because for the last half a century, they've chanted death to the United States and death to the United Kingdom. These people have financed not every, but virtually every terror organization, both in the Middle East and in the Western world. Donald Trump has stepped in at a time, and the United Arab Emirates at the beginning didn't even want them to use the airspace, despite requiring them for their defense. Someone else told me, what about if the US leaves the region? Well, that's the UAE cooked. Yeah, because it's the only reason that the UAE was even able to get to where it's got was on the security and safety of people like the United States, and to a much lesser degree, the United Kingdom, being there as a protectorate. That is the only reason that bubble wasn't popped so many, many, many times. And on this occasion, the bubble is popping, but it's popping based on the lies that it projected, the lies of building skyscrapers without foundations, building the Burj Khalifa without sewage. You know, these lies, that's the bubble that's popping. And you are going to see, and you would have to be totally blind to not understand, there's going to be a financial crash and there's going to be a real estate crash. Whether that's short-term, medium or long-term, it's to be decided. But in reality, it's medium to long-term. And it will never be the same, even if it continues from a holiday point of view, because they will offer cheap, government-sponsored programs to allow hoteliers to offer discounted deals, which will be unfair to the rest of the world. You know, like when they subsidize the Emirates Airlines, and it hurts British Airlines because British Airways can't compete with a subsidized entity like Emirates Airlines. It's unfair. Etihad's also is subsidized. It's unfair trade. Yeah, they're state sponsored. And this is what you're going to see after the Iranian war. You're going to see a massive state-sponsored campaign into their own hospitality industry to just try and keep those tourists coming. But they will never forget the videos. Those videos online will always be there now of the airports being blown up.
Yes.
You know,
I mean, I'm sure, of course, that's why they wanted to censor it. And I think, you know, it is interesting to watch comments on social media. People don't believe that, you know, Sheikh Mohammed is ordering residents to be jailed for sharing a photo privately in a private message with their own families. I mean, right now I've got a German, a Russian, and a Canadian who were actually on the same floor where the drone hit. And, you know, texted their families back home and said, oh, you know, here's a snapshot of, you know, the blown up floor. Don't worry, I'm safe. And the police detained them. I mean, to me, that's just so insensitive, unnecessary. That's nothing to do with national security. It's not to do with I mean, these buildings were all over the media already. So it was no secret that they'd been hit. And there was absolutely no reason to detain the victims, essentially, of a drone strike. And I think people can't believe it.
For a long, long time. I mean, let's be real. Dubai has detained victims for a very, very long time.
Absolutely.
Are you a criminal, Radha? Because should you be in the United Arab Emirates, I couldn't imagine what they would wish to do to you. I mean, what I would say to you is can you imagine a world where free speech is prisonable 10, 25 years, you know, where there is no free press, there is no free freedom of expression? You know,
the funny thing is, like, people don't mind. It seems people who go to Dubai, they don't mind that Emirati citizens have been locked up indefinitely, like for their whole lives, just for criticizing the government. People are fine with that. If it's an Emirati citizen, okay, well, that's their problem. It's a bit like Princess Latifa. And then you have, foreigners being locked up over a text as well, and they just want to turn a blind eye to it. And there was a lady on a discussion the other day on one of the radio stations I had, and she called in and said she's a journalist or, worked in media in the UAE, and she doesn't believe all of these cases. And of course, there's 20 years of cases. If you say at Grok, is this true? Grok says, yeah, absolutely. People fact check and it's true. But I think a younger generation, they see a history of entrepreneurs and business people whose companies were looted, who they were scapegoated just so that they could, locals could steal their business and assets and put them in jail to do it. And some of them are still in jail. They don't believe that, a woman was jailed over a Facebook post, or another young lady was raped and then charged with sex outside marriage. They want to look into the cases. She said, well, we'd need to look into each and every case. It's like, no, not when there's a pattern, there's a 20-year history. I mean, let's not deny it. Why don't you admit it? Say, okay, there are risks to being in the UAE, and here's the best way to avoid getting in trouble yourself. Or, there are safeguards or small things you can do to try to stay safe. And most of them involve avoiding doing business in the country. But I think there's a new generation of people who just don't believe that these things happen.
And also, Radha, what I've also learned in my experience in the Gulf, both in doing business, and I'm a specialist on finance in Gulf business, is that people will almost accept anything not to pay tax.
Yeah.
Now, there is tax in Dubai. They actually have corporation tax, and they have VAT now. They do have tax. It might be lesser, but if you actually add all the stealth taxes and indirect taxes and fees, it really does equate to the same, really, from a corporation point of view. You have to have sponsorships where you don't own your own businesses, or you have to be outside of a free zone where you have regulated scenarios which are not the same as free moving trade. The whole system is it's just sort of a puff job, But most people that I meet, in order to pay less taxes, will accept any human rights violations. And again, I'm going to argue that I was one of those people. I employed 500 people on my factory floor. I employed thousands of people, construction workers, and as time went on, it eroded me on the inside. It hollowed me out. It made me sad. I actually returned back to the UK because I wasn't well at the time. And the government, in my opinion, totally took advantage of the situation in a financial entrapment case. And we've gone on with a period of time through legal cases to go out and demonstrate, prove, and vindicate myself in what I've said. And I was denied many times over, and I've gone out and proved it. And the United Nations themselves have proved it. But you're dealing with a government that plays by no rules. You're dealing with a government that has no laws. And these people that are jumping from the frying pan and into the fire, a lot of them, they jump into the fire because they actually tie their own blind around their own eyes. They choose to not see. And they cry. And that's why people like you are a lifesaver, because they cry only when they are viciously, venomously attacked with no regulations, unchecked boundaries. And our government, as example, because of this massive dependence on their investment in this recycling con, are helpless. And I just think the whole thing is really being exposed. This whole Iranian war has really exposed many, many layers of the lie in Dubai. It's not just the fact that there can be bombed. That's just one part. When this is over, you're having, worldwide viewership of dictatorship censorship laws, something that they were able to whitewash because it was always targeted parties that they did it selectively and targeted, while now they're having to do it en masse. They're trying to control the whole mass expat population at the same time. And albeit there are some people who will support that, either financially or just because they're a mental hanger-oner, the whole world has seen this. They're seeing it playing out in real life. Dubai, the new Dubai, after this is over, will be an exposed Dubai. And I don't disbelieve that there are some people who don't want to be in the United States, the United Kingdom, or the European Union afterwards, because they feel that their tax paid pounds or dollars or euros are going toward subjects that they don't agree with, and that is quite real, and it is overtaxation in the UK. I agree with you, Radha, but the whole lie.
It's not just that. I mean, one of the issues I'm seeing, and just following this Iran incident, is, you know, as we as British citizens say, okay, look, the bubble's burst, the UAE is no longer seen as safe. We still have people turning around and saying, well, yes, we're jailing people for sending a photo, and we're jailing people for sharing this secret information, a location of debris that's fallen out of the sky. But at the same time, they're saying, but, you know, the United Kingdom jails people over Facebook posts and tweets and everything else, and in the thousands. So they criticize the UK for its lack of free speech as well. It's really hard to kind of, after we saw just those mass arrests, you know, the past 18 months and Lucy Connolly, it's really hard to criticize the UAE in a sense.
Well, you can criticize the UK because you're allowed to criticize the UK. You see, there will be another election, and the Labour Party categorically will not be in power. Like, there is no way that they can keep power. No different how the Conservatives lost power recently. The Labour are now doing a much worse job in a much shorter period of time. So they will lose power, and more than likely we'll probably see Farage as our next prime minister, because mathematically he's got the numbers. And we do need a change. But what we have in the UK is the ability to complain about that. When they have a censorship complaint, and we have the ability to say, that's censorship, you shouldn't do that, and we can get out there and protest it, and we can argue about it, and we can openly debate it as we are now. We're not criminals for debating this. If we had this same conversation in the Gulf, both me and you would be considered criminals, would be labeled criminals.
That's absolutely true. Yeah,
thrown in prison, and
even if we had it privately and didn't share it with anyone,
we'd still be labeled criminals. So yes. What is a criminal in the UAE is just a citizen of the world. You know, you can't even go out and promote cancer. You know, if you were to go out as a charity promoting cancer, you would need their permission, and their permission only allows Islamic-based charities. The UAE, yes, we have censorship problems. Yes, that is true in this recent government. It's a very sort of third world left-wing thinking, but I'm going to argue that a lot of the Labour government is very third world left-wing thinking. That is our current government. That's our problem. But our government will come and go. Yeah. And probably in response, what we'll end up having is a very far-right government, because the left took it too far. They took it too far, and
now the pendulum's going to swing.
Action, reaction. Yeah. But in the UAE, there is no elections. There is no changing of government. There is no one to cry foul play to. You're not allowed to cry foul play. There are no one highlighting what's happening. There's no one in the UAE now going out protesting anything. Because in Iraq, as example, where they killed tens of thousands of people, I can promise you now, the free-loving, thankful sheikh of Dubai, if you started going to protest about it in the streets, would mow you down. They would shoot you in the street. If you walked out and started protesting on volume, they would take you out. That is the same with all Arab and Gulf dictators. They are not different. One might have better press. One might have oil agreements with the right countries, like the United States and the United Kingdom, so they get given blind eye, turn your head attitude. That's fine. The Dubai government has benefited from the fact that British Petroleum take the United Arab Emirates oil, because if it wasn't for British Petroleum, all of this would be in the paper. What Saudi Arabia do is not good. They're all over the UK. They're in London. They're allowed in London because of Aramco, American oil company. That's why they're allowed to come to London. Russia, who don't allow British Petroleum and don't allow Aramco, they're the bad guys. But what they did to Khashoggi which is quite normal in the Saudi Arabian government, is okay because they take the oil. In the UAE, they abuse human rights, financial entrapment, which I personally had to go through with you. We had a 5-year court battle going through all the way up to the United Nations, fighting the Foreign Commonwealth Office. Now we're even going further with Reclaim. We both know that the law is totally skewed in those countries. And when people say to me, oh, but the Iranians are so bad and the Dubai Emiratis are so good, there is no instance of them being good. What there is one had no favors and one had all the favors. And the one that had all the favors was shiny and sparkling. And the ones who had no favors were dirty and rotten. And the dirty and rotten people played dirty and they played rotten. They went out and sponsored Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah. Of course, it only made them more dirty and more rotten. So Trump did the right thing getting rid of them. And he does the right thing if he does a Venezuela action where he takes over their oil, which I think is the only solution to recoup the cost of this war that was been waiting for 50 years to happen. But yeah, what you're going to see is a big correction. It's going to be a huge correction. And all the people at the moment that are paid to influence people that Dubai is safe are very similar to people on the third class stewards on the Titanic saying, don't worry, there's enough lifeboats, when they knew full well there wasn't enough lifeboats. And, they're aiding the Sheikh in doing this, thanking Sheikh Mohammed for not protecting them, because they're not protecting them, he's protecting himself. Dubai is a business model. It's not a country. And these expats are not citizens. Even if their children are born there and their grandchildren are born there, they will never have the rights of citizens. They are visitors for a very short window on a visa that any moment in time can evaporate. And that's what they are. So it's extremely, I'm going to say, docile of these influencers. And I think it's dangerous how they're convincing people to buy a lie that's so obvious in the mainstream media. Bombs flying overhead, run before you're dead. That's the saying. You don't, oh, it'll be fine. It's insane. It's insane. Oh, they've only struck the financial market today. They've put a bomb in the DIFC. They've only stopped the ports and blew up Jebel Ali port, the largest port in the Middle East, and they blew up Fujairah, our only way of getting oil out. It's fine.
Right? It's fine. They're only getting apartment buildings, residential.
Yeah, it's just insanity. It's actual insanity. And I'll be careful with the wording. But who is worse than the rapists is the man that watched the rapists, said nothing, did nothing, and convinced people that the victim was at fault. That is what those influencers are. They are worse than Sheikh Mohammed, because they're telling willful lies, whether that be for money or whether that be because they're hanging on to some sort of virtual reality that they're desperate to keep prior to the war, a war which has now exposed the realities of the Gulf. They were getting huge returns on perceived no risk. Laws of the earth will tell you high risk, high return. London is low risk, low return. Yes, you will earn less in London, but you will not be blown up. And if the government do censor you, everyone in your whole family can get in front of Westminster and get rid of that government. That person can go. That can't happen in the Gulf. The lies are being exposed, and what you're going to have is a before and after story of Dubai. Dubai will continue, but it will be forever changed.
Yeah. I mean, we always spoke previously, actually, about the celebrities who were promoting Dubai. You had Ricky Martin going out there to a country that had jailed homosexuals and promoting it as safe. And, all sorts of celebrities. And now there's just a different kind of promoter, and that is the influencers that we can see. But I think I think it is confusing to people. It is muddying the water. I mean, it's one thing to see Ricky Martin go and perform at a concert. It's another thing to see this constant barrage on this algorithm, say TikTok and Instagram, of, influencers everywhere, whether it's Andrew Tate all the way down to just, random girls saying, come here for a holiday. It's amazing. But when you see it in bulk and you see it en masse, I know I'm on the algorithm, and you just see how many different people scroll and scroll, and it's just person after person saying, "Come here, it's safe. Don't worry about the missiles. Don't. Oh, that's an explosion. Don't worry about it."
It's brainwashing.
Someone went to jail over. Never mind. Don't worry. It won't be you. So it's just absolutely constant. And you're right. It is negligent of them. And perhaps there needs to be a time where they look at what they're doing and is it really worth it? People are getting into trouble there. We just had someone released today who was falsely accused of having 3 kilos of drugs, and they finally got released. But there's other people there who are on travel bans over really small matters like a landlord debt or a credit card debt or a business dispute, very small money amounts on travel bans. One lady was in absolute tears. She had 3 children, desperate to get home, desperate to get out of this bombing zone, this risk zone, and not allowed to. I mean, that's what you can expect. That's what 2009 did. Travel bans, Interpol red notices, and it's going to happen again. But I think right now, at least our government should be lobbying the UAE to remove the travel bans of anyone who's on there for trivial matters, who's not in prison, who's not really a criminal. They should be allowed to leave and take the decisions for their safety and their life in their own hands.
And thank God for people like you, Radha, that actually stood up and fought for these people. I mean, I talk about our own case. I mean, the reality is that there is so few truthful people in the world. I have witnessed Dubai lie. I have witnessed them falsify every single part of a legal case to benefit either their own Emiratis or their own legal system. What a lot of people misunderstand about Dubai is Dubai has laws. Dubai has laws, but they choose not to follow them. And Dubai's laws are broken by design, which allows the government to not follow their own laws. So you'll get an ignorant influencer who will say, no, Dubai has a law for this and Dubai has a law for that. But they're ignorant because they have zero experience. Because the moment that law affects them, that's gone.
Yeah.
And the reality of Dubai is it is a dictatorship. And when you see these influencers, none of them are out being imprisoned for telling lies when it benefits the Gulf. Yes. Trying to create a scenario where it's safe and there's nothing happening and there's no bomb going off. No one's getting in prison for that.
No one is getting charged with disinformation then.
No one's getting charged. They're only getting charged when it hurts the financial model. And the financial model of Dubai is corrupt. Dubai is built on corruption. Let's make no qualms about this. The majority of the money in the United Arab Emirates is either massive tax fraud or evasion, money laundering, whether it be financial business or terrorism. And it's the highest concentration of criminal wealth. That's what the foundations are. It's a Muslim country that also has the most adult female entertainment in the world. You can't find a bar where they're not there. And a lot of people say, well, they're paid well, but there's also a lot of forced. There's a lot of forced.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dubai is just one big lie. Dubai is a lie. It's without doubt the simplest phrase to encapsulate the whole premise of Dubai. Now, you can either buy that lie because it suits you, and I've watched lots of, like you said, Ricky Martin, left-wing liberal people who have bought the lie because it suits their narrative, even when it affects them directly, because they just don't want it to be true so badly. They don't want the fact that it is imprisonable by both either being gay or acting homosexually in any capacity. They don't want it to be true. It's not true, but it is true.
Yeah.
You know, Sheikh Mohammed, thank you. He protects us. He doesn't give you any protection. In fact, if you walk there with your heart, with a heart, I had a diverticulitis issue, which is not my heart, it's inside my body, it's my colon. I would bleed in the car park unless I was willing to put a 50,000 dirham deposit down at the Saudi German hospital now in Al Barsha. In Al Barsha, when I got took there by ambulance and I actually died on the operating table, they asked for a 50,000 dirham deposit because my life insurance, apparently, or my health insurance didn't cover that operation. If I didn't have 50,000 dirhams liquid funds in Dubai, they would have wheeled me into the car park and let me die. This is not a leader that protects you. This is the opposite. He protects one person, himself. And he doesn't do that some of the time. Rather, he does that all of the time. So that's the reality of Dubai. And I think that's being exposed during this war. And no matter how many people go out there and push a false narrative, you can't convince all the people all the time. You can convince some of the people some of the time. And all the whitewashing and the propaganda that's being manipulated and controlled, both through government corruption and just blatant draconian laws being activated in dictatorship rules, that has been okay in small, targeted, isolated incidents. You know, our case, you know, demonstrated that financial entrapment is a mechanism of Emiratis to take advantage of expats. But it was isolated, it was selected, it was targeted. We beat them by absolutely fighting back to the end, to the bitter end. We beat them because we were willing to spend millions of pounds and years of human resources to fight for the truth. And we got the truth. But 99.99% of the time, people give up or they don't have the financial resources to keep going. On this occasion, this is happening to everybody. This is en masse. This is on the mainstream media, BBC, CNN, Fox News, GB News. It doesn't matter what station you watch. It's everywhere, all at the same time. You can only pretend and use the word incidents rather than bombing. There was an incident on the Palm Jumeirah. There was an incident at the airport. No, these are bombings. Bombings on the Palm Jumeirah, bombings at the airport, bombings at the Abu Dhabi American Embassy, where people were killed.
Yeah.
You know, these are not incidents. You can only cover up so much. And it doesn't really matter how many influencers they pay. You cannot convince all the people all the time. And this is just, it's too big to lie about.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's just too big. They tried to contain it for a few days, but the fact is it's ongoing and it's going to get out, and they're best
and this
not
campaign's going to go on for
it.
a long time. This is not going to be over in another few days.
Yeah,
it's going to get much worse before it gets better. And in between it getting worse, there are going to, without doubt, have financial implications on liquidity.
Of course. Yes.
People do not get my platform, Wolf Mindset Business Academy, and my other business, Romichar Asset Liquidation Specialists. I am inundated with British expats who all of a sudden have spent the last 6 years running down London that can't wait to get back their money back to London, because London is the original safe haven. It's the Rome. It will be here for another 100 years. It's been here for the last 100 years. It's safe. It has red tape. It has torturous Labour government at the moment. It has lots of bad weather, but it's safe. You know, you are not in a dictatorship, and there, people are realizing that, and it's going to be a forever change. And I just think that the safe haven status is gone.
What do you, I mean, one of my issues, I suppose, is the mutual enforcement agreement that the United Kingdom has with the UAE. And I'm sure you're aware of this, but any case going through the DIFC courts in Dubai can be enforced through the UK courts. And in an expeditious way where it's very difficult to defend against an application for enforcement, which means they don't necessarily have to go through the facts of the case again and rehear the case. The issue that I've seen is that there's one case, for example, where a government decides that they're going to lose if they take an action against a British citizen in the British courts. So instead of doing that, they apply to Dubai to take an action in the DIFC. They grease the wheels. They, incentivize authorities in Dubai. They maybe have a meeting with Sheikh Mohammed's officers. And the next thing, they've got a judgment in their favour. And they've also got an extradition treaty between Denmark and the UAE. Next thing, they get a judgment and they're enforcing it through the United Kingdom, even though they couldn't get it directly, Denmark to the United Kingdom. I have a real issue with this mutual enforcement agreement that I don't believe had proper consideration, and it should be reviewed or revoked. The other thing is I've recently been asked for commentary on Nigel Farage. People are concerned that he's getting too close to the UAE. He's having meetings with the Emiratis. I didn't necessarily have an issue with that. I think that, you're going to be dealing with the Emirates in your position in the government, especially if you were elected and you did become the Prime Minister, you would need a good relationship with them. But do you have any advice for him?
Well, there's two questions that you've actually said there. First one, I'm assuming you mean Sanjay Mahatra. Is that the case that you were bringing up?
Well, I think he might be one of the targets, and there are others as well. Yes.
I mean, the abuse of power the ability of the abuse of power in the Gulf is totally biased and unfair. Like Sanjay Shah it's a totally unfair legal case. This case has been something that,
I mean, certainly it was politicized for sure.
Struggling to explain, but it demonstrates draconian power. It demonstrates the man's been imprisoned for a phenomenal amount of time. There is no real legal basis about it. He's gone all the way. He's fought on international level, and he's fighting for his rights. But if London participate in that, if the UK government participate in that,
but they are not Sanjay Shah himself, but they're coming after others who had him as clients, even though they maybe had nothing to do with his business.
It's a dangerous world. If the UK start asking those type of favors, the UAE will expect reciprocal favors for people here in the UK that have people like myself, or I know you're not in London right now, but when you're in London, it allows them to attack people like us.
It allows them to open a case through their own courts in Dubai, and they can easily do that, and they can find a way. When you're a corrupt legal system, you can find a way and then enforce it without any proper judicial consideration in the United Kingdom.
Dubai public prosecution work backwards, so they work the exact opposite of our legal system. In the UK, and I know I don't particularly need to educate you, because let's be honest, you are the teacher of this, but in the UK we have common law. In the United Arab Emirates they have civil law, but it's sort of merged with Sharia law. So they have a version of civil law. They don't actually have civil law, they have a version of it. The DIFC brings a third common law practice to already a mix mash of civil and Sharia law. So you really become a hot pocket of just mesh, and it's a dangerous thing. When the UK government allow that, they're really acting, in my opinion, criminally, and that should be stopped. That shouldn't be allowed. And in the public prosecution of Dubai, they work backwards. So they find someone that they want to attack. They find a decision that they want to achieve, and they work backwards to get to that decision.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, and if we, which we are, the trustees of the world, the custodians of what's right and wrong, if we start playing those sort of third world Middle Eastern tactic games, then we lose what we are, and the reciprocal damages in return is quite shocking. And I'm very, very strongly against it. I'm very strongly. I think it's a very dangerous game to play, and if we don't keep our fundamentals and our laws, I don't agree with Keir Starmer with 99.999% of what he says. I find Sadiq Khan, to act more like a sleeper cell than a mayor. It's quite shocking to me that any of it hasn't seen him being imprisoned for real and legal reasons. But I also appreciate our laws here in England, and I appreciate that we have fair and balanced equal laws, and we have these things. And the moment we start discounting them by using these illegal channels in the UAE, and that is an illegal channel, it doesn't matter how much we whitewash it, that's just wrong, and it shouldn't be allowed, and it should be stopped. And I suppose it's only really people like you that have the power to highlight that and put a spotlight on it. So you're doing a very brave and very hard job to sort of get that sort of shown to the public, because a lot of people don't know that. They don't know that. And the Foreign Commonwealth Office in the UK, FCDO, they are corrupted. I mean, I've had cases where, in our own case with yourself, Radha, where they've told mainstream media complete fabricated lies. They've certainly told me one set of events,
and they've actually worked against their own citizen, potentially damaged them and put their lives at risk
purely for political gain. And they're just not scared to sacrifice their own. And it's really a sad situation. So when you hear what you've said on the financial side, it's totally wrong. It should be banned. It shouldn't be allowed. It should be stopped. And it's only really through platforms like yourself that gets highlighted. I mean, I do my best to educate and reveal these type of things within my own Wolf Mindset Business Academy. And I created a very user-friendly website, wolfmba.com, in a way to give that education. But it's sort of, without your lobbying of this just gets whitewashed.
Yeah.
This gets totally whitewashed, and the British government shouldn't get away with it, and they should be stopped. And that is totally wrong. And especially in Sanjay Shah's case, which I'm a big supporter of his case.
And so what would your advice then be to Nigel Farage if he were to become Prime Minister and develop that relationship? I think
Nigel Farage is he's the answer to a very extreme measure which the Labour Party has taken. They took a direction of self-harm. And do I think Nigel Farage is the best candidate for Prime Minister? No, I don't think there's ever going to be the best candidate, but he is without doubt the best of the bunch. And what I would tell Nigel Farage, if I was able to talk to him on a one-to-one level, and I've been on the Farage show, as you know, recently, just talking about the budget regarding Rachel Reeves' big black hole story that she pumped out there, where she either didn't know the economics and the accounts of the British budget, or she was purposefully deceiving the public.
Yeah.
I don't know which one's worse, but I've got partnerships with around 70 businesses, and if she was the financial director of any of my businesses, she would have been sacked, fired, gone, humiliated. I took her out in public and proverbially cut her neck open, should we say, to say, this is what happens when you do such a bad job, whether it's accidental or on purpose. Nigel Farage, his enrollment will be to be the opposite. He's the counter flip side of the Labour Party. If he follows the same mistakes, then he's misleading the people who are voting for him. The people that will be coming to get behind Nigel Farage are coming because they want real change. The word reform is what's needed. He's a reform party, and this government needs to totally be overhauled and reformed. And if Nigel Farage can keep to that conservative base, then he will be the best prime minister that we've had for a very, very long time. And despite my critique, I'm a supporter of Nigel Farage because we desperately need that in the economy. And these tactics, these dirty tactics, talking about dirty politics in the Gulf, they can't spread to the UK. The Foreign Commonwealth Office has to be rehauled. The whole concept of the people that are trying to gain foreign direct investments can't be the people responsible for protecting human rights and British interests, because the two just can't be in the same balancing. You can't be responsible for both. There's no checks and balances in that. And, he's got to reform the way things are done. And especially in the financial system, if we follow what Labour and the previous Conservative Party to a degree has been allowed the Gulf to get away with, then he's no better than them. So I really, really would give him advice. If he asked me my advice, be what we are asking for: a reform, a change of how we do business in the UK. And I actually supported him also during Brexit. The concept of being independent out of Europe is very important, because we did used to have one of the largest manufacturing sectors in the world. We did used to have one of the largest financial sectors in the world. I mean, we recently, I don't know if you saw the Lloyds of London losing our insurance in the Strait of Hormuz because Keir Starmer didn't have the guts to act as a little brother that we are to the United States. That is going to cost, and I was reading data showing up to £40 billion. That is phenomenal.
It's a huge loss. I mean, just finally, because we don't have too long.
Yeah, it's just weak. And Nigel Farage, if he brings any of these weak apparatuses to our new government, then he's not reforming anything. So my advice that you asked me for is stick to the name, be a reforming candidate, because that's what the British people are desperate for. They're desperate for change, and they're desperate for reform. And I'm one of them.
I mean, one thing I've noticed is, people tend to have a lot of concern over the impact of different parties on human rights. Now, what I've noticed is since Starmer has been in, it's been much harder for British citizens to get the support from the FCDO and from their representatives, their MPs. In the United States, since Trump got in, we've had J.D. Vance, we've had Trump, we've had Marco Rubio all get involved in several of our cases. And those people were facing serious charges. They were home in the space of a week or two. And they phoned every day. J.D. Vance was on the phone every single day. Is this person okay? Is my constituent okay? We're getting him home. We're doing what we can. And he was home. And to have the support of your government like that felt very good. And it shows and illustrates that you can be very good partners, allies, and friends with the country, but also be powerful and not be bullied around. And I feel like the current government in the UK is just not doing anything. They have no backbone. Do they have a relationship with the UAE? Not really. The UAE has them as a relationship. They own them. And that's how it really feels at the moment. And that's something that, when I'm asked, is it concerning that Nigel is talking to the UAE? No, it's not. That strong relationship as Trump has with the UAE can be turned into something that actually helps British citizens, helps US citizens, and makes them safer.
Let me also highlight one more point, which is, again, I was recently on GB News discussing Trump's tariff. I don't know if you saw the interview, but I consider Britain to be the little brother of the United States. After World War II, we agreed to take a step back, and the US took a step forward, and that system has worked. What made Britain strong was not the little island that we sit on. was the Commonwealth, the volume of flags that carried votes when we went to the United Nations. That's why we were lobbied with Tony Blair to go to Iraq, because when we went to war, you fought with the Commonwealth, groups of countries that were tied. And behind the UK had the ultimate big stick, the United States. So little tiny England had a bigger voice in the echo chamber than it deserved. Our London Stock Exchange is pretty much propped up by the New York Stock Exchange. The petrodollars run through the stock exchange to give it a puffed up valuation. So it gives it US spot 1, UK spot 2, and then of course the China beast from the east, keeping it at spot 3. You know, Keir Starmer, he's throwing away our strengths. He's throwing away, in this left-wing woke sectarial Islamic influence, just throwing away all of our tools out of our toolbox. And when we talk to the Foreign Commonwealth Office, talks to the United Arab Emirates, they don't see the strong United Kingdom, part of the United States, part of, we couldn't even hold the small island, which we shared the base on the other day. They see a country that is fragmented and weak, and we are treated accordingly. The deals that were signed to create the United Arab Emirates by the British Consulate and British Petroleum, when it used to be the Trucial States as a British protectorate region, those deals were signed in strength, but those deals are enacted today in weakness. And Nigel Farage, he needs to promote strength. I go back to Trump, peace through strength.
Yeah.
If Nigel Farage wants to be the Diet Coke or the little brother of the United States, Britain will soar. You know, Britain will fly, because being a kid with a big brother in the playground, you get bullied a hell of a lot less. And we're throwing away all of our partners. And the United States is our number one trading partner, is our number one military partner, and is our peer in the world's echo chamber. Without the United States, we don't even have a voice. We're mute. And people like the United Arab Emirates, they can see that. And, you know, they don't talk to us anymore. They talk through us.
Yeah.
They tell the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office what they want. They have got away in our public media to demonize our capital city. I mean, in COVID, it was just atrocious. They stole both our talent and our wealthy on the premise and promise of lies. We not only accepted that, so all of our wealthy, talented people left, but in guise of money being recycled, sent back to the UK, we courted them back, our own money that we lost the talent for, in replacement for Arab dictators buying up swabs of real estate and buying up shares in our big blue chip enterprises. I mean, it's self-destruct. And now, from having tens of thousands of small, medium-sized, entrepreneurial-minded people, you've got a handful of dictators that own it all. And that is scary. So Nigel Farage, when he gets into power, and I hope he does, he should lead from a position of strength. He should reunite with our natural allies. And from a position of strength, all of these small despot dictatorships will fall back into line. But at the moment, they're talking through us or at us rather than with us. And me and you both, Radha, witnessed that with our own eyes. And this Labour government, this is like this is atrocious what is happening. And that's why I know that it's impossible for them to hold ground in the next election.
Which is how far away now?
I think we've got a few years yet.
Seems so long. Every year seems a long.
Unless there's some chance that we can call for an early election. And if we did call for an early election, Nigel Farage would win hands down. He's the leading party by far. He would win. I personally would support him. I know that my family community and my network have supported him, but we support him because we're all business people and we're desperate for reform. We're desperate for reform. And I think the average common sense British citizen, even if they're a Sikh, even if they're from second or third generation Asian, Eastern European, it doesn't matter where. If they have conservative common sense, they're behind Nigel Farage. No different than Donald Trump. The actual values of what he's putting forward make sense. If he goes to the UAE and explains that things are going to change, there's going to be no more of this one-sided tennis where we play with both our hands tied behind our back, we will do very well because they actually respect strength. They do not respect weakness. And Keir Starmer is the picturation of weakness. Did he see the video of him punching the boxing bag? I mean, it's embarrassing on so many levels. The man,
I know it's quite cringe. Really,
I talk about boxing because I did a lot of boxing, and boxing speaks volumes about character. And I watched him, and it was humiliating. And he's doing that on the public stage, on the world stage. He's doing that on all our financial markets. And the apparatus, what he's had with the United Arab Emirates, made the Conservatives look good. I hope that Nigel Farage is talking to the UAE. We have a huge financial interest in the United Arab Emirates. British Petroleum, still to this day, the petrodollar is a massive importance to our economy. We have bilateral agreements where they have to reinvest a certain element of their money back to the UK for them to get the royalties in the first place, which a lot of people don't actually know. And that should be continued to be enforced, but it shouldn't be to the detriment of our entrepreneurs. The media war has to stop. The war behind the curtains has to come to an end. The nonsense has to be put to an end. And we do need that Donald Trump peace through strength attitude. And even if it's only a Diet Coke version, by realigning with our natural allies, the fact that the big brothers in the playground will reduce the bullying that we've been receiving. And it has been bullying. We've been bullied. The Foreign Commonwealth Office has been bullied unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your insight as always. I think we should check in again next week, perhaps, because so much is happening at the moment. And who knows what's going to happen in the next 7 days? Probably more drone strikes, probably more casualties, and probably more influencers saying it's still safe. Come and visit. So let's check in again next week and
Radha, just say one last thing, and I mean this to anyone that follows myself or anyone that wants advice from myself. Your platform is something that is so important. And I personally have thanked you more times. I think you've actually got sick of me thanking you. But I've got to say, what you're doing is amazing. I think this platform is undervalued. I don't think people even understand just how important your platform is. I've watched the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office actually try to stop you from attending meetings because they almost are fearful of the truth saying, the reality spotlighting that you do. And without people like you in the world, this world would be a darker place. I'm a big advocate for your platform, and I highly recommend anybody, and I do mean that, anybody that really wants to have true knowledge of what's happening in the Gulf, not just Dubai, because you are an expert in ways that I don't think could even be explained on this channel. If I had to actually sit there and advise people how many ways you help people, I would need another show just to explain how many things you've done and what you do behind the scenes. It's phenomenal, and I think you're doing really great, Radha.
And vice versa. I'm glad that I came to know you, unfortunately through circumstances that were stressful at the time, but I mean, we made it in the end, and I got a great friend out of it.
What I would say is David beat Goliath. David
certainly
beat Goliath.
did. Yes.
You might be the little man in the fight, but wow, Radha, you pack a punch.
Yes. Did you see, speaking of punches, did you see, was it Conor McGregor on a horse promoting Dubai a couple of days ago?
Yeah, well, look, again, I think that these people are worse than the dictator themselves, because they're falsely providing advice that is bad advice. If
Well,
I get
perhaps they
on your
don't even know
platform now
about it,
and I
honestly.
divert, it's bad. It's really bad advice. It's bad advice to promote the UAE. If you're going to promote the UAE, promote it on its true merits. The problem is that it's illegal in the United Arab Emirates to mention its true merits. If someone said, "Why should I go to the UAE?" I would give them the answer of, "Do you want to evade tax?" Yes, then it's great. Go. Do you want to launder illegal money? Yes, then go. Are you a terrorist organization or a drug cartel? Then yes, go. Because that is the foundations of the UAE. That's what built that blind dictatorship, selective legal system built. Everyone else that come and benefited from that, they're just as bad as the criminal themselves. You know, Ricky Martin, when he turns a blind eye to legal laws of homosexuality in the Gulf, he's as bad as they are. You know, I meet so much of it. I really do. I get so much of this left-wing liberal nonsense. It's fine if you actually stand up for what you say. Don't come to the UK, have a lot to say, then go to the UAE and praise them for doing the opposite. You know, people can run down England, they can run down America, all they like. This is the real world. Real money in the real world. Dubai is fantasy island. Recently, the Iranian war has woke a lot of people up to that fantasy because it was built on a premise of lies and deception. If that business was a business in the UK, they would be up in court for deception. The number one person to fail on financial agreements is Sheikh Mohammed. How many financial agreements has he not honored? How many interest repayments could he not make through Dubai World? You know, he is the number one breaker of his own laws. So, you know, Colin McGregor, he has a duty to tell the truth, not to speculate on someone who works within no international laws, follows no rules, and breaks all of those laws and rules every opportunity they can get. That's wrong for him as an influencer, and I don't agree with it. But it will continue because they're paid very well. You saw what's his name? The Andrew Tate. You know, he got a box of chocolates and he said, "This is how the government should treat people." Albeit there's a lot of things I don't agree with Andrew Tate.
I mean, look, Andrew Tate loves the legal system, and a lot of people do, because you can take advantage of some of these laws. Now, you can weaponize the justice system.
I did myself. I can't call the man. I was number one for this. What Andrew Tate is taking advantage of, I can't say, "Oh, you're a bad person. You're taking advantage of all these."
No, what I do mean is they can take advantage, not just take advantage as in, you know, appreciate and enjoy the laws that are on offer, but what I'm seeing is a growing number of people who are weaponizing the justice system against other foreigners, in the sense that you can have a lot of power over people just by threatening them with opening criminal cases. And that has, you know, unfortunately attracted a sort of criminal class, as you say, gangsters, you know, people you wouldn't want to deal with in the UAE, but you happen to, because it's a small place and you meet people and you do business with them. And possibly you come across people you wouldn't normally in London or your home city, and you end up doing business with them. And they exploit you by, you know, threatening to open cybercrime cases against you, and including the women. I'm getting an increasing number of reports, not just reports. I'm getting an increasing number of cases where celebrities and, prominent people have actually threatened and intimidated women into performing certain acts under the threat of reporting them for, a text message or something like this under the cybercrime laws. And, that's really concerning. But a lot of, this class of people.
What there is a big abuse of power.
Yeah.
I mean, what Dubai is,
but there's a lot of powerful people with money who enjoy that power. And yes,
power, which is not fair and not right.
Yes.
I mean, the security check laws were the worst. You would have people that were like mole cops that had no power in their own home countries, and they'd be threatening and bullying business entrepreneurs. Their favorite would always be the English entrepreneur. And, they'd have this power which they could abuse. And, there are a lot of people that get to the UAE and they can buy this power cheap. Wasta, which is a word which I don't really want to go into because we need a talk. But it's so cheap there. I personally abused it in my own capacity when I was living there. It's really cheap. Corruption is rife, and there are a lot of people, like a lot of women, that are terribly exploited. Terribly exploited. It's not safe for women there at all. That's another really sad lie. It's not safe.
And people think it is until it's not, and that's the thing. It's all well and good to say it's totally safe here when you've been there a year, but what happens in another year or 2 years when it happens to you, and then you realize that actually it's this huge pattern and that you're not alone in this. And I think that's what the problem with entrepreneurs and business people are. They think it won't happen to them, so they keep promoting and promoting, and then it does happen to them, and they should, they tell themselves, I should have known better. Yes, you should have. The information's out there in a sense, but it's very easy to fall into this promotion, basically.
It's not actually out there. You're banned there. You can't get your information there. You type in your name, it comes up, it doesn't exist. No, it's
except on social media, and I think in their hometowns before they leave their own countries and go to the UAE. I mean, it's all over the international media. That's not censored in the UAE.
No. Okay, Radha,
well, great talking to you. Wonderful to see you, and let's talk again soon. I'll put all of your details in the text below, so please do check out Wolfgang Douglas, and we'll talk again soon. Have a wonderful week.
See you later, Radha. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Gulf Injustice podcast.